Charles, this morning we are coming at everybody early. You are in an undisclosed international location. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I'm in sympathy with Carlos, whatever, Alcaraz. I did not shave my head, but I am wearing a pink Lacoste shirt because it's now manly to wear pink. He's wearing
Who?
pink out the number one seed at the U.S. Open. The Spanish guy,
Oh,
Carlos Alcaraz, I think is his name.
Alligator Alcaraz.
Yeah, no, he's a great player.
They're
But
closing Alligator Alcaraz. Another federal judge interfering with executive branch authority. Pretty annoying, Charles. It's going to be the focus of what we discuss today. We're going to be talking about Cook, the thief, the Fed, and her lawyer. It's a pretty crazy situation.
it is indeed, and we'll get into the specifics of the Cook case in just a second. But what the Democrats are doing here by attacking the authority of the office of the president at every turn, anything the president does, oh, you don't have the authority to do that, says some judge or some lawyer for Cook or whatever. This is now setting precedents which are dangerous, I think, should a Democrat ever become president, which may or may not ever happen again, because the precedent is set. Chuck E. Cheese Schumer is sitting on all the nominations. It's the end of August, so now it's 7 months have passed since the inauguration, and Trump still doesn't have his his all of his nominees in, whereas Obama got his in immediately. Biden got his in immediately because the panty waists in the Republican Party, they just fall into line. Democrat won the election in theory, and so he gets his advice and consent. He gets his nominees. Democrats take a total opposite approach, and now this Cook case. I mean, we did a lot of work on you and I did a lot of work on Claudine Gay and her reprehensible example as president of Harvard. Now I guess she's just a professor, a tenured professor, pulling down $1 million plus as a plagiarist. So what do you expect out of Cook? The present furor is that she's bounced out of the Fed governorship, or one of the governorships, for lying on now 3 different mortgage applications, not just 2 as it started out. So 3 different ones. But then there's this great article that you put up there by Christopher Rufo and Luke Rosiak exploring her fraud as in academia. I mean, this woman of course, she's going to commit bank fraud. She got her career and her down payments for those properties have resulted from academic fraud. She's just a fraudster. A fraudster who happens to be a fat black chick, so she's hiding behind that.
You could
You
hide
can't
a
farm
tank behind that.
it. I'm sure, and but seriously, you can't. I mean, it'd be one thing if university were free in the United States, but I don't think it should be. But it's another thing to have it be as expensive as it now is, and to have multiple examples of Lisa Cook and other scoundrels. I think there's a Harvard Business School professor who was bounced out, who I think might be Italian, a white Italian woman, I think, who was celebrated at Harvard Business School. She was honored as being, one of the most outstanding rising faculty members, in her scholarship. I think she was a professor of ethics at Harvard Business School, and her scholarship
Amazing.
turned out to be complete fraud. I mean, it was. I haven't told the whole story, but I went to the kickoff for a Harvard Business School campaign at some fancy place in New York, call it a decade ago, and then the celebration of exceeding their goal dinner. And at the latter one, they showcased their various talent. And they said, now we're going to put up here, you're going to meet a young female faculty member who holds the distinction of having the second highest viewership of a TED Talk. I was okay, a TED Talk, that's interesting. So attractive woman. And what was the substance of her talk? It was the best way to ace an interview. And, she's an attractive woman, right? So she says the best way to ace an interview is very surprising. What you do is about 30 seconds before you go into the interview, you do this.
Be hot.
That's what, and supposedly that changes the circulation flow, gets more blood to your brain, or I don't know what her argument was. I thought to myself, this is one of the standout Harvard Business School professors. And then they put this, the kind of person who used to be a professor when I was there, this guy, Harvard undergraduate, rowing champion, big, tall, strapping finance guy. And he was making some argument that on the face of it sounded ridiculous. The best way, risky, the best way to outperform the market is to invest in companies that are not risky. And that flies in the face of all kinds of research I know about. And of course, it turns out that this particular scholarship has been attacked by the real pros, the CFA Institute, which is very good, because among other reasons, because they have the wrong time period they're looking at. They just select some strange, unrepresentative time period where that turned out to be true, but they ignore, a raft of data. Well, that seems to be Lisa Cook's specialty, according to this article. Jason, right?
Yeah, just research the time period that supports whatever it is you're trying to prove. She was... the
specifics were, she made some argument that black people getting patents, there was an alarming drop-off in that in 1900, which she blamed on racism and lynchings. Well, what did the truth turn out to be? The truth turned out to be that they didn't keep track of the data after 1900 in the same way. So, and when I read that the first time, I wasn't really thinking too carefully about it. But then upon reflection, I know, just because I'm familiar with the process, when you try to get an academic paper published, you normally have somebody mentoring you, somebody saying, who really knows how to do it well. And, when you select the topic, you generally have to say, this is the topic, and here's how I intend to prove or disprove my theory. And you have to lay all that kind of stuff out in a memorandum to some advisor. And you would have thought that, the advisor on this paper would have said, listen, you moron, the data set isn't there. You may as well blame it on anxiety about Martians. There's no causal link between lynchings and patents. And anyway, so that's a paper she was celebrated for. I had forgotten that her nomination as Fed governor was only broken by Kamala Harris. It was a close vote in the Senate. And so now we find out that there are credible allegations that she committed mortgage fraud, not once, not twice, but 3 times that we know about so far. And in her defense, it's not, as you would expect, somebody who is innocent would say, no, I didn't do this. Here's what happened. Here's the counter argument. And you're only looking at a portion of the facts. What she says through her lawyer is there's no credible evidence other than the evidence that Pulte put in his letter and this follow-up letter. Other than that credible evidence, there's no credible evidence.
Well, that's what they're saying in the news. What they said in the hearing didn't address the evidence or the allegations. They went to this notion that the president could fire her for cause and that he hadn't proven the cause and that she hadn't been given due process. But this is part of lawfare, Charles, is that, when you fired somebody from Dillon Reed, they don't have a guarantee of due process in the hiring at a company or
right.
in an appointment to a government position. By bringing it into court, she has due process before the court, but the president doesn't need to apply due process to his need for cause. He stated the cause, and now the judge is off cogitating about whether or not she gets to decide if the president's cause is adequate. The lawyers for Trump brought up a very good point, Charles. They basically, because the judge was asking, and this is pretty normal, I guess. It seems weird to lay people, which obviously I am. I'm not an attorney, but I've had enough time in court now that I've seen this happen, where the judge actually asks both lawyers to explain to me why it should be the way that you're saying, and then they go off and think about that. And they said, well, the lawyer for Trump said, if the president just fired her and didn't give cause, then we could be here in court. But the fact that the president gave cause, the lawyer was saying the court doesn't have the authority to come and question the president's judgment. That's what they're trying to do. That's the danger.
Well, and there was breaking news right before we went on that I didn't mention when we were on the phone, and that is apparently this judge is a sorority sister of Cook.
Yeah. No, that's known. That's what I mean. It's more lawfare.
it's,
So,
it's
I mean, I haven't
ridiculous.
heard too many people talking about the issue of Norm Eisen being the attorney. I mean, yes, he's shown there, so people are picking up on that now, but that was, I saw that right there in the lawsuit. And it's not only just that Norm is the attorney, it's that Norm has this network of nonprofits, which, I mean, you really, Charles, more than anybody I know, have brought our public attention to this whole 501c3, 501c4. Norm has made a practice of this, of conflating these politically active things with these tax-exempt entities that can grant the donors tax, what's the word I'm looking for? Tax
Exemption.
rebates. Yeah.
Exemption. Yeah. So Norm, by the way, you knew more about Norm than I do, but my recollection is that he has been boasting about leading the resistance against Trump. Right? He's not. Right? I mean, he's not saying.
Yeah. He's not shy.
Right? I mean, no, he's been boasting about it. He's the primary resistor of Trump. He's going to use all his resources and his contacts, and now these various nonprofits. You're not supposed to use nonprofits in this way. You're just not. And I hope there's a way to eventually get to the bottom of various communications. So how did Norm get hired if he's hired? How did this douchebag Lowell? How did he get hired? Who's paying for each of them? What rates are they charging? Are they customary? What alternatives did Cook consider? Who's actually making decisions in her supposed defense here? And beyond all this, why did the Fed miss these defects? I mean, you would think. I mean, this to say that she wasn't a Fed governor when she lied in these mortgage applications, and therefore the argument runs, I suppose, that what she did at the time had nothing to do for the responsibilities as a Fed governor. So therefore,
they didn't even go to that.
Well, I thought I saw somebody trying to go there, but I mean, the point is that the Fed is the ultimate regulator of the global banking system. It's the largest animal out there of its type, and if the integrity of the governors of other than Jay, well, he's chairman of the board of governors, but the governors are the highest people on in the organization, and if you've got one Fed governor repeatedly now lying about her mortgages to gain personal benefits, and also now you find out or focus more closely on the fact that her position, like Elizabeth Warren's, was earned through fraud, academic fraud. That just guts the integrity of the Fed. How many other people are there like this? And by the way, there were, I think, 3 other people who were Fed governors who were forced to resign because they were suspicious trading activity while they were Fed governors. You see, the Fed, people at the top of the Fed know before the market knows what the Fed is going to do vis-a-vis interest rates. And if you know that interest rates are going to be pushed down, then chances are certain interest rate stocks are going to jump up in value, interest rate sensitive stocks. So, I mean, there's a lot of economically relevant information that a governor and the staff would know about. Yeah. So you've got somebody who's prepared to lie about her academic credentials. And I think if we push hard on those, we may discover there's more to that, because once a serial liar, always a serial liar. So she's lying about that. She's lying about 3 properties that we know about so far. What else is she lying about?
Yeah. Charles, back to the executive or the judiciary versus the executive question. What you just raised about these people were suspected. There's a chief executive at any company, and if he goes into the guy's office at Dillon Reed and says, "Hey, we're suspicious about this activity. Can you tell me anything?" If the executive doesn't like the guy's answers, that's cause. We just suspected this person of dishonesty. This is not a trial court where the person is presumed innocent. The executive has the right to fire people for cause. And if the cause is, I didn't like her answers to the question, I mean,
Right.
they were hashing out whether she had been given due process or not, as if the firing of her was a process subject to adjudication in the court. If they determine anything other than Trump absolutely has the right to fire her, it's a big problem. And just going to the nonprofit aspect, this is the entity through which Norm is representing her. I would suspect that this thing probably approached her. This is the Democracy Defenders Fund. Now, he's got the Democracy Defenders Fund, Democracy Defenders Action, and the thing is, when you click donate, it says, give it to Act Blue. Now, this is strange. This is processed by Act Blue Charities, a 501c3, but the thing is, that's the donate button there. This is weird, because I noticed in my video yesterday, let's reload this page a second. This is even more deceptive, because when you click this donate, it says, I thought it's very weird. So anyway, they're telling you to give to a 501c3 here, and this Norm thing is a 501c4. So this is how they're getting around the political activity versus tax exemption for the donors. But you can't do that, right?
You're not supposed to. And I mean, this whole area of 501c3s linked up to 501c4s, that's what Media Matters is. There's Indivisible, I think, is like that. I was told 2016, actually, by Peter Smith, and it was the first time I got into it, that it's actually quite, if the IRS makes a decision to go after you, then you have to justify in those paired situations. Oftentimes they share staff, they share facilities, how you allocate the cost of your costs, how you allocate your revenues between the two organizations can become very problematic. That is, if you're a Republican. But if you're a Democrat, you just do whatever the fuck you want to do, it seems. And
this is the area to go after them on, though, because obviously, even if this is strictly legal, which I do not think it is, it's obviously designed to circumvent IRS code, and it should at least be widely publicized that they are doing this. They're essentially stealing taxpayer funds to finance this partisan political activity to, it was amazing. I had a tweet where I was talking about, the All In podcast was discussing, is this Trump weaponizing the DOJ? Absolutely not. It's Norm and other nonprofit grifters weaponizing the judicial branch.
Exactly. And Norm, to me, the Japanese have this phrase that when a nail sticks out, you should hammer it into the wood. And
he needs to be hammered.
He does. He and the other guy, Weissman. These people who are excellent at crafting arguments that sound as if there may be some merit to them, unless you know the subject matter. You say, no, there is no. We're arguing about something that is settled. Donald Trump has certainly has the power. Most of his direct reports,
not just Donald Trump, Charles. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's the executive of the United States of America, the chief executive. That's what I resent so much about this. Not that it's Trump. It's that these weaselly assholes are chipping away at the constitutional republic, and they're trying to make it, they're effectively making it a critocracy, a government ruled by unelected judges.
And stupid-ass lawyers and conflicted lawyers who aren't judges.
Right.
Because Norm, he has the ability to, he is a lawyer, I believe, right? So, I mean, and he has probably law firms he's associated with. So the cost of Norm engaging in legal activity and lawfare is a lot lower than the ordinary mortal, since he's abusing his position as a lawyer, as a member of the bar. And shame on him, and shame on the whole crew of knuckleheads. Mark Elias, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden is a freaking lawyer, for Christ's sake. I mean, there needs to be, and it's clear that the Bar Association can't discipline bar members. They're not in the business of doing that. So who disciplines these lawyers? Some law firms, Finley Cumble went out of business. It was a gigantic operation and just went from being super powerhouse to bankrupt. So it does happen. but very infrequently. And these lawyers, most of them are good arguers. That's why you become a lawyer. Um, and they see, moral hazard. They see that they can engage in egregious activity and nobody's going to discipline because it's all for a higher cause of protecting Obama and attacking dictator Trump, orange man bad. This is a dangerous moment. Now, one of the things that's encouraging, though, is that it's the same collection of morons who are on the wrong side of these arguments now, right? This Abby Lowell, he defend Hunter Biden? Yes, Hunter got a pardon, but I think his reputation is definitely shit from now till eternity, as is his father's.
He's doing good crackhead videos with that guy, Andrew, Channel 5. He's almost become like his biographer. Hunter Biden is now advertising T-shirts for that guy.
Is he really?
They did another episode, and he's like wearing the swag. That guy, Andrew, is pretty funny, actually. I like his interview style, but Hunter Biden is a clown.
He's an ass clown.
But he's a lawyer, he's an too. He was working for
Yale Law School.
Boys. Well, Schiller. He went to Yale Law School, but he was working for Boys Schiller Flexner. Then he got that $132,000 or whatever it was from Kenes Rakashev, the guy who controls ABT Bank in Kazakhstan. Then Hunter Biden leaves Boys Schiller, and Boys Schiller is representing ABT Bank in their lawsuit against Felix Sater. It's all very interconnected. It's all very crooked.
Exactly. And let's not leave out his art. This are you in the market for a Hunter Biden painting?
George Berger.
Or do you prefer those? Remember the old days? You had this paint by numbers thing on velour of all things. Not canvas on velour, which is
Elvis. I guess paintings.
It's kind of like velour is like, what is it? Fake. It's fake velvet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like pleather. Plastic
That's not
leather.
Your preferred medium?
No, yeah. It's my extensive collection of velours and hummels. You know what a hummel is?
No.
It's ridiculous statues. When you go to, I don't know, to Prague into a souvenir shop, you'll see these, fake statuettes, or whatever. And some people actually collect them. I suppose you can go.
I remember Ricardo Montalban used to advertise Chrysler vehicles and would talk about Corinthian leather. And I was like, I was a kid, so I thought, well, that must be some kind of fancy, I don't know what, but it turns out it's just fake leather. And that's Chrysler's word for fake leather that they made up. It sounds better when Khan is selling it to you.
Yeah, deplane. Yeah. That guy had quite the varied filmography or adography or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
His credits.
Well, that was the only thing I remember him advertising. But my favorite role for him, of course, was in The Wrath of Khan. But Charles, you've been doing a lot of travel through airports. I don't know if people have seen this video of one of your fellow travelers here. We've got a little... this kangaroo trying to get on an airplane.
Yeah. That was me, actually, with my support kangaroo. Yeah. Michael Smith gave it to me.
That's good.
No. But actually, I did. I actually had an interesting experience. I went from Kuala Lumpur to India, and I first started going to India in June of 2008 to a place called Bangalore, which is up about 2,500 feet, I think, above sea level. So it's actually much more pleasant than Mumbai, which is on the water and a gigantic place. So it's humid, or Delhi, which is near the desert, which is incredibly hot. So Bangalore is nice. And they had just put in a new airport in 2008. To my surprise, they now have a second terminal. They put in a new airport last year, which I guess is where I landed. And I was a bit nervous because I was supposed to land at 10 odd p.m. In Bangalore, and back in the day, it took about an hour and a half to get from the airport into town. So I on purpose booked in at the Taj Bangalore. Taj is a high-end chain near the airport, and so I land, I had gotten a visa at the visa store in Penang in Little India. And actually, that process, there were very few foreigners going into Bangalore at this time of year. So there was no real line. Breeze through that. I had checked luggage, no checked luggage, so I didn't have to go through there. I come out, and there's a travel place, and I thought I'd be ripped off on that, and I probably was ripped off, but the cost of a fancier car to my Taj hotel at the airport was $12 with a tip. And it took about 6 minutes to get there. The room was ready, went right to sleep, no trouble getting back to the airport the next day, and I saw it for the first time in daylight, and it's just magnificent what they've done there. I mean, check-in was a breeze. I was flying Emirates, and I had to go to a special counter there, and I was through customs in like 5 minutes, and then walked. They make you go through a duty-free area. It was pretty nice, and then you come out into this. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like an indoor, not jungle, but park with shops set in it and restaurants set in it, and just everything clean and beautiful. And I was thinking to myself, Eric Adams is running around. Yeah, there you go. Eric Adams is running around saying, New York is the greatest city on earth. Yeah, tell me about JFK, moron. And compare it to terrible. This place.
Charles, let me interrupt for a moment because we've got to make our way over to the sponsor exclusive segment, the First Amendment Forum. People can join us there. There's a lot more to discuss. People can join us on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com. Also, people who follow me on X at JG_CSTT and subscribe there are going to be able to get the sponsor exclusive segment right after it broadcasts. You could tweet at Elon Musk and ask him to upgrade the software so we can do sponsor exclusive live streams. Someone in the chat is asking me to start a locals channel. I don't want to fracture it any more than we already have, but I want to thank everybody who is sponsoring the show. Please get onto one of those channels and join us for the First Amendment Forum. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes. Thanks for watching.